Hello, can I be heard at the back? Right at the back? Yes, thank you. I'm Arundhathi Subramaniam, and I'm delighted to be here to be introducing an event that features three artists for whom I have the highest regard. We're going to be presenting a text this morning authored by Vikram Seth, who is a poet and fiction writer whose work has been with me for many years now, whose work I've long admired. And presenting the text are undeniably two of the finest actors in this country, Ratna Pathak Shah and Naseeruddin Shah. It's a great privilege to be introducing them and to be able to express one's admiration in an absolutely unqualified, non-mealy-mouthed way. I just want to say something about the story that they're going to be reading today. It's from a book called Beastly Tales from Here and There that some of you may know. It was published in 1992, and it's a book of animal fables, all drawn from different parts of the world. So 2 from Greece, 2 from Ukraine, 2 from China, 2 from India, and 2, evidently, from the land of Gup. It's a fun book. It's a playful book. It's a whimsical, quirky book. And I remember reading it as a young poet in 1992 when it was first out, with great interest, because it is a book of animal fables told in verse. And the first thing that struck me when I read it, which is also what struck me now when I revisited the book, is the fact that Vikram Seth, as a poet, is able to align his craft with the narrative so exquisitely that the poetic line feels absolutely inevitable. So as you hear it or as you read it, there's a sense of it being just so. It's just the way it was meant to be. That's the feeling it gives you, a feeling of great ease. And that ease, of course, is not easily achieved. It's a sign of mastery to be able to come up with that kind of casual elegance and panache, which he does particularly well. And the story that Ratna and Nasir are presenting today is a story called The Elephant and the Tragopan, which is an ecological story. So in that sense, it is a morality tale. But the interesting thing about it is the fact that it's really how it is approached. It is about the environment. It's a very grim statement about what human beings are capable of, the desecration that they're capable of this planet, the agenda of willful self-sabotage that they seem capable of unrelentingly. But what makes it distinctive is the fact that there is no heavy-handedness about it. There is no preachy didacticism about it. There is a lightness of touch. There is a capacity for ambiguity. There is a capacity to create vibrant, complex characters among the animals and the human beings. There are idiosyncratic people in here, and that makes it interesting. This is a complex morality tale in its own way, and it is that subtlety that, to my mind, makes it the powerful and poignant story that it is. The Elephant and the Tragopan by Nasir and Ratna, presented in their own inimitable way. Nasir and Ratna.
We have some trouble with finding another stand like this. So I'm going to sit, he's going to stand. I hope you still enjoy it. And I hope the papers don't fly off too often. Yeah, go.
Hello. Hello, everyone. Welcome. We often do this poem as part of a complete performance, which includes some more of Vikram Seth's poems from Beastly Tales, along with some very short stories by James Thurber. So today we will only present to you Vikram Seth's poem, The Elephant in the Tragopan, which, as Arundhathi told you, is about the environment. And this is something which we, particularly in the north, have faced and seen, the devastation and the fury that nature can unleash in response to humanity's acquisitiveness and greed. And luckily, God's own country, Kerala, is so far still safe. I hope and pray that it stays. Can you start? The Elephant in the Tragopan. In Bengal Valley, broad and green, where neither hut nor field is seen, where bamboo, like a distant lawn, is gold at dusk and flushed at dawn, where rhododendron forests crown the hills and wander halfway down in scarlet blossom, where each year a dozen shy black bears appear, where a cold river filmed with ice sustains a minor paradise, an elephant and Tragopan discussed their fellow creature, man.
The Tragopan last week had heard the rumor from another bird, most probably a quail or sparrow. Such birds have gossip in their marrow. That man had hatched a crazy scheme to mar their land and dam their stream, to flood the earth on which they stood and cut the woods down for their wood. The Tragopan, good-natured pheasant, a trifle shocked by this unpleasant, even if quite unlikely news, had scurried off to test the views of his urbane and patient friend, the elephant, who in the end had swung his trunk from side to side with gravitas and thus replied,
Who told you? Ah, the quail? I rather doubt it, but who can tell? Well, I would suggest that we wait and see. Now, would you like to have some tea? He drew a lukewarm cup and poured his friend a cup.
A week passed, and the Tragopan one morning read the news and ran in panic down the forest floor to meet the elephant once more. A cub reporter, Bison Calf, who wrote for Bengal Telegraph, had just confirmed the frightful fact in language chilling and exact. Here, read it, said the Tragopan.
And so the elephant began. Bengal, 5th April, Saturday. Reliable informants say that the great big shot number 1, Shri Padma Bhushan Govardhan, and the Man Council of this state, intending to alleviate the water shortage in the town across the ridge and 10 miles down, have spent 3 cartloads of rupees so far upon consultants' fees, whose task it is efficient, cheap, and speedy ways to dam our stream, create a lake, and blast a tunnel through to take more water to the houses that men occupy.
What do you think? The Tragopan burst out. About this wicked plan to turn our valley blue and brown? I will not take this lying down. I'll cluck at them. I'll flap my wings. I tell you, I'll do such things. What they are yet, I do not know. But take my word, I mean to show those odious humans what I feel. And the great partridge will reveal, that partridge dwelling in the sky, who looks down on us from up high. He will reveal to us the way. So kneel with me and let us pray.
The elephant said, let me think. Before we pray, let's have a drink. Some bamboo wine, perhaps some tea.
No, the bird said angrily. I will not give in to distraction. This isn't time for tea, but action. The wattled horns upon his head stood upright in an angry red. The elephant said nothing. He surveyed the landscape thoughtfully and flapped his ears like a great fan to cool the angry Tragopan.
It's infamous, I know, the elephant said, but we have got to use our head. Praying may help us, who can tell? But they, of course, have gods as well. I would endeavor to maintain our plans on a terrestrial plane. What I suggest is we convoke the beastly board of forest folk for a full meeting to discuss the worst that can occur to us.
And so that evening, all the creatures with tusks or gills or other features met at the river's edge to plan how they might outmaneuver man. Gibbons and squirrels, snakes, wild dogs, deer and macaques, 3 types of frogs, porcupines, eagles, trout, wagtails, civet cats, sparrows, bears and quails, blood-sucking leeches, mild-eyed newts, and leopards in their spotted suits, stated their stances, asked their questions, and made their manifold suggestions. Some predators drooled at the sight, but did not act on appetite. The leopards did not kill the deer. The smaller birds evinced no fear. Each eagle claw sat in its glove. The mood was truce, if not quite love. At meetings of the beastly board, eating each other was outlawed.
The arguments grew sharp and heated.
Some views advanced and some retreated.
Some feared to starve and some to drown. Some said they should attack the town.
The trout said they were unconcerned if the whole bamboo forest burned, so long as they had space to swim. The miners joked, the boars looked grim. They talked for hours, and at the close, at last, the elephant arose and with a modest trumpet call drew the attention of them all.
Oh, beasts of Bengal gathered round. Though in our search for common ground I would not dream of unanimity, I hope our views can reach proximity. I speak to you as one whose clan has served and therefore studied man. He is a creature mild and vicious, practical-minded and capricious, the sticky, the good, loving and brutal, sane and mad, the good as puzzling as the bad. The sticky center of this mess is an uneasy selfishness. He rips our flesh and tears our skin for cloth without, for food within. The leopard spots are his to wear, our ivory unknots his hair. The Tragopan falls to his gun, he shoots the flying fox for fun. The dancing bear dances to his whim, my own tame cousins slave for him. But we who give him work and food have never earned his gratitude. He grasps our substance as of right to quench and spur his appetite. Nor will he grant us truce or space to rest secure in any place. Sometimes he worships us as gods and sings of us at iced fods, or fashions fables, myths and glories to celebrate our deeds and stories. And yet, despite this fertile fuss, when has he ever cared for us? He sees the planet as his fief, where every hair or drop or leaf or seed or blade or grain of sand is destined for his mouth and hand. If he is thirsty, we must thirst, for of all God's creatures, man comes first. If he needs room, we must fly, and if he hungers, we must die. Think what will happen when his scheme to tame our valley and dam our stream begins to thrust its way across these gentle slopes of fern and moss with axe, explosive, and machine. Since rhododendron logs burn green, they'll all be chopped for firewood or logged and smuggled out for good. As every bird and mammal knows, when the road comes, the forest goes. And let me say this to the trout. The bamboo will be slashed, no doubt, and what the tragopan and I delight to eat will burn and die. But what will happen to your stream? Before the reservoir, your dream of endless space can come about, the soot and filth will snuff you out. What tolls for us is your own bell. And similarly, let me tell the leopards who may fancy here a forest full of fleeing deer, after your happy passing slaughter, you too will have to flee from water. You will be homeless like us all. It is this fate we must forestall. So let me say to every single endangered denizen of Bengal, we must unite in fur and feather, for we shall live or die together.
All this made such enormous sense that all except the rather dense grey peacock pheasants burst out cheering. The peacock pheasants, after hearing the riotous applause die down, asked with an idiotic frown,
"But what is it we plan to do?"
A bison calf remarked, "I knew those peacock pheasants were half-witted." And everybody joshed and twitted the silly birds till they were dumb.
How typical, how troublesome.
A monkey said, "What awful taste! How graceless and how brazen-faced when all of us are clapping paws to undermine our joint applause." Oddly, the elephant was the beast who of them all was put out least. He flapped his ears and bowed his head and said,
"The pheasants have a point," he said. "Unfortunately," he went on, "the days of beastly strength are gone. We don't have mankind on the run. That's why he's done what he has done. We can't, as someone here suggested, burn down the town. We'd be arrested or maimed or shot or even eaten. But I will not admit that we are beaten. Someone suggested that we flee and set up our community in some far valley where no man has ever trod or ever can. Sweet to the mind though it may seem, this is, alas, an idle dream, for nowhere lies beyond man's reach to mar and flood and burn and leach. Besides, the beasts already there will fight with us for food and air. No, we must struggle for this land where we have stood and where we stand. What I suggest is we go to the great big shot down below and show him how self-interest and what his conscience says is best both tell him, let the valley be. Who knows? Perhaps he might agree, if nothing else, to hear us out. But we must take, without a doubt, firm data to support our prayer. And in addition, we must prepare some other scheme by which he can ensure more water gets to man. For by the twitching of my trunk, without that, we're truly sunk.
And so it happened that a rally meandered forth from Bengal Valley a few days later, up and down the human town, with trumpet, cackle, hunt, grunt, and hoot. They harmonized along their route, and long live Bangladesh was heard from snout of beast and beak of bird.
Protect our spots, the leopards growled,
while the wild dogs and gibbons howled. Redress our sad and sorry tale, the tragedy of Bengal Vale.
And there, red-breasted in the van, clucked the gallant tragopan, raised high upon the elephant's neck and guiding him by prod and peck.
The only absentees, the trout, were much relieved to slither out. They asked, "How can we wet our gills clambering up and down those hills? The journey will be far too taxing. We'd rather spend the time relaxing. We'll guard the valley while you plead."
All right, the other beasts agreed.
Meanwhile, from fields and gates and doors, the villagers came out in scores to see the cavalcade go by. Some held their children shoulder high, while others clutched a bow or gun and dreamed of pork or venison. But none had seen or even heard of such a horde of beast and bird, and not a bullet or an arrow touched the least feather of a sparrow. So stunned and stupefied were they even cheered them on the way, or joined them on the route to town, where the great big shot with a frown said to his ministers,
"Look here, what is this thing that's drawing near? What is this beastly ragtag army? Have I gone blind or am I barmy?"
Yes, sir, said the number two. "Oh, I mean, no, sir. But what to do? They have not gone through the proper channels. The protocol protection panels have no idea who they are, nor does the riffraff registrar. It is possible they don't exist."
"Well," said the big shot, getting pissed, "exist or not, they're getting near. And you'll be number 12, I fear, unless you find out what the fuss is all about and tender us advice on what to say and do and think and be. Now off with you."
The number two was almost crying. He rushed off with his shirt tails flying, without a cummerbund or hat, and flew back in a minute flat. "Oh, big shot, sir, thanks to your grace by which I'm here in second place, thanks to your wisdom and your power which grows in glory by the hour, thanks to the faith you placed in me which gives me strength to hear and see, thanks to your..."
Yes, thanks to my power to cut you dead. What is it you have come to learn?"
Sir, they plan to overturn your order, sir, to dam up Bengal. And sir, I saw some pressmen mingle with the parade to interview a clouded leopard and a shrew. The beasts are all against your plan. The worst of them's the Tragopan. His eyes are fierce. His breast is red.
Red?
Yes, he wears a wattle on his head. He looks so angry, I have a hunch that he is the leader of the bunch. And when I met them, they weren't far. "Oh, sir! Oh, no, sir! Here they are!" For now, a hula gibbon's paw was battering on the big shot's door, and animals from far and wide were crowding in on every side. "Save Bengal Valley!" rose the cry. "For Bengal, let us do or die! For Bengal,
Wait! Screamed the big shot in a TG. "You can't come in here, I'm busy. I'm the great big shot number 1, Sri Padma Bhushan Govardhan. I rule by popular anointment. You have to meet me by appointment."
"What nonsense!" cried the Tragopan. "You try to stop us if you can." The big shot sensed their resolution and turned from awe to elocution.
"Dear friends," he said, "regretfully, the matter isn't up to me. What the man council has decreed is not for me to supersede. It is true, I, so to speak, presided, but all and none of us decided. That is the doctrine, don't you see, of joint responsibility. But if next year, in early fall, you fill in 7 copies, all the forms that deal with such a case, and bring them over to my place together with the filing fees and 3 translations in Chinese, the council at my instigation may give them due consideration. Meanwhile, my friends, since you are here a little early in the year, no fault of yours, of course, but still it's not the best of times, I will invite you to a mighty feast, where every bird and every beast will sup on simply superfood. And later, if you're in the mood, my number 2 will escort you This evening, to hear the speech I'm due to give at the zoo.
At this pathetic, tactless bribe, a sound rose from the beastly tribe, so threatening that the big shot trembled and said to all who were assembled,
Oh, my dear comrades, bear with me. You are upset, as I can see. I meant the stadium, not the zoo.
He gestured to his number 2, who scrawled a memo in his diary.
Perhaps an innocent inquiry, the elephant said, may help clear the air. Please tell us all, were you aware, Sir Big Shot, when you spoke just now, that even if we did somehow fill out your forms and pay your fees, your cure would post-date our disease? Before next fall, our valley will have disappeared, for ill or good. The remedy that you suggest, it must be thought, is not the best.
A crafty look appeared on the big shot's face and then was gone.
Oh yes, of course, my friends. It just slipped my mind. But then these days I often find I have so many files to read, so many seminars to lead, so many meetings to attend, so many talks, that in the end a minor fact or two slips by. But Elephant, both you and I appear to understand the world.
And here the big shot's fingers curled around a little golden ring.
This vast unwieldy gathering is not the place, dear Elephant, where we can reason face to face about what can or should be done. We should discuss this one-on-one. To be quite frank, your deputation has not filled me with condolation. Tell them to leave. I'll close the door and we'll continue as before.
Although the other beasts agreed, the elephant declared,
I'll need my secretary and Mahout to help me sort this matter out. Like all the rest, he's left the room, but he can come back, I presume. There's 2 of you and 1 of me, so I expect that you'll agree.
The big shot nodded.
Call the man.
Quick as a quack, the Tragopan opened the door and strutted in to greet his buddy with a grin.
The big shot and his number 2 scowled as they murmured, how do you do? Tea came. The big shot looked benign. Milk?
Thanks.
Sugar?
1 is fine.
It's not too strong.
I like mine weak. And at last, the moment came to speak.
You see, good beasts, the big shot said, we need your water or we are dead. It is for the people that I act. The town must drink, and that's a fact. Believe me, all your agitation will only lead to worse frustration. Go back, dear beasts, to Bengal now. We'll relocate you all somehow in quarters of a certain size. He smiled and rolled his little eyes.
Immediately, the Tragopan pulled out his papers and began with fact and query and suggestion to give the big shot indigestion. You say the town is short of water, yet at the wedding of your daughter, the whole municipal supply was poured upon your lawns. Well, why? And why is it that Minister's Hill and Babu's Barrow drink their fill through every season, dry or wet, when all the common people get is water on alternate days? At least that's what my data says, and every figure has been checked. So, big shot, wouldn't you expect a radical redistribution would help provide a just solution?
The big shot's placid face grew red. He turned to number 2 and said, this agitator is dangerous. Deal with him later. Then, turning to the elephant, he murmured sweetly, could you please stop talking over there?
There's a performance going on
sorry.
the other side.
Sorry. Then turning to the elephant, he murmured sweetly, I'll be blunt, your friend's suggestion is quite charming, but his naivety is alarming. Redistribute it night and day, redistribute it all away, ration each drop, and you will still find supply will leave demand behind.
The elephant first sipped his tea, then ate a biscuit leisurely, then shook his head from side to side, and having cleared his trunk, replied,
Well, even as regards supply, I do not see the reason why you do not use what lies to hand before you try to dam our land. Even my short walk through this town shows me how everything's run down during your long administration. Your pipes cry out for renovation, your storage tanks corrode and leak, the valves are loose, the washers weak. I've seen the water gushing out from every reservoir and spout. Repair them. It will cost far less than driving us to homelessness by blasting tunnels through our hills and bloating your construction bills. But that's just one of many things. Plant trees. Revive your wells and springs. Guide from your roofs the monsoon rain into great tanks to use again. Reduce your runoff and your waste, rather than with unholy haste destroying beauty which once gone, the world will never look upon.
The elephant, now overcome with deep emotion, brushed a crumb of chocolate biscuit off his brow.
Dear chap, the big shot said, somehow I think you fail to understand what really matters in the end. The operative word is votes. And next to that comes rupee notes. Your plans do not appeal to me because, dear chap, I fail to see how they will help me gather either. He giggled, then continued, neither the charming checks, the generous firms who wish the council comes to terms, who want to log or dam or clear or build, will come to me, I fear, nor votes from those who think my schemes will satisfy their thirsty dreams. It is not just water that must funnel out of the tunnel through Bengal Tunnel. Do animals have funds or votes or anything but vocal throats? Will you help me get re-elected? You're speechless, just as I suspected. I've tried to talk things out with you. Now I will tell you what to do. Lift up your stupid trunk and sign this waiver on the dotted line. Give up all rights in Bengal Vale for fair or feather, tusk or tail. And sadly, since you are now in the know, I can't afford to let you go. Your friend will never leave this room. The Tragopan has found his doom. And as for yourself, my number 2 will soon escort you to the other zoo. From this, all the beasts will learn your lands are ours to slash and burn. And anyone defying man will be a second Tragopan.
He giggled with delight and patted his cheeks with air and gently added,
But if you go cahoots with me, I'll spare your friend and set you free. And I'll make sure you'll be, let's say, provided for.
Before you could say pheasants too, the servile hands of number 2 grasped the bird's collar in a vice. The elephant went cold as ice to see his friend cry out in terror. He would have signed the form in error had not the Tragopan cried out, "Don't sign!" Oh, oh, oh. And at his shout, the big shot's son came running in and struck the henchman on the chin. While the foiled killer squealed and glared for a long time, the small fry stared with indignation at his father. "Papa," he said, "I would much rather give up my place as number 3 than countenance such treachery. Why can't we let the valley live? Those who succeed us won't forgive the rape of Bengal." "I recall," the small fry sighed, When I was small, you used to take me walking there with Mama in the open air. For me, a dusty city boy, it was a dream of peace and joy. Along safe paths we'd walk. A deer might unexpectedly appear among the bamboos and the moss and raise its velvet ears and toss its startled head and bound away. Once, I saw leopard cubs at play and heard the mother's warning cough before you quickly marched me off. Until this day, there is not a single house or hut or field in Bengal. How many worlds like this remain to free our hearts from noise and pain? And is this lovely, fragile vision to be destroyed by your decision? And do you now propose to make a tunnel, a dam and pleasure lake with caravans and motorboats and tourists at each other's throats? Loudspeakers, shops, high-tension wires, Ferris wheels and forest fires? As the roads come, the trees will go. Do villagers round Bengal know what's going to happen to their lands? Or are they too eating from your hands? I had gone snorkeling on the day the council met and signed away the Bengal bills. I know you signed, but why cannot you change your mind? You talk of sacrifice and glory. Your actions tell a different story. Do you expect me to respect you or decent folk not to detect you? Where you have crept, must mankind crawl, feared, hated, and despised by all? Don't sign, dear elephant, don't sign. Don't toe my wretched father's line. Dear Tragopan, do not despair. Don't yield the struggle in mid-air. I'll help your cause. And as for you, he turned towards the number 2. This time your chin, next time your head. Rubbing his fists, the small fry said.
The number 2.
The small fry bleeding from the nose fell, and the number 2 arose, and slobbering over the big shot's hand, called him the savior of the land. At this, the elephant got mad, and putting down the pen he had clasped in his trunk to sign, instead poured the whole teapot on their head. The water in an boiling ark splashed down upon its double mark. The big shot and his henchman howled. The Tragopan gawked and scowled. You wanted water? Here's your share. Then guards came in from everywhere, and animals came in as well. All was confusion and pell-mell. All was confusion and pell-mell. While news reporters clicked and word, clicked and word, clicked and word, at limb of man and wing of bird, wing of bird, wing of bird.
The elephant stayed very still. The Tragopan rushed around until, provoked by a pernicious peck, the big shot wrung its little neck.
The Tragopan collapsed and cried, "Oh, oh!" and rolled his eyes and died. He died before he comprehended his transient span on earth had ended, nor could he raise a plaintive cry to the great partridge in the sky whose head is wrapped in golden gauze to take his spirit in his claws.
What happened very fast. The millet was put down at last. The small fry cried out when he found the pheasant stretched out on the ground. The big shot too began repenting when he saw everyone lamenting the martyr's selfless sacrifice. He had the body laid on ice, arrayed with the state flag and arrayed with chevron, scutcheon and cockade. And all the townspeople came to scan the features of the Tragopan. 4 buglers played Abide With Me, 4 matrons wept on a settee, 4 brigadiers with visage grim threw cornflakes and puffed rice on him. 4 schoolgirls robbed the Tragopan of feathers for a talisman, and everyone stood round and kept long vigil. while the hero slept.
A long, alas, a final sleep. O elephant, long may you weep. O elephant, long may you mourn. This is a night that knows no dawn. Ah, every Bengal eye is blurred with sorrow for its hero bird, and every Bengal heart in grief turns to its fellow for relief. Alas for Bengal, who will lead the struggle in its hour of need? Is it the grief-bowed elephant who must now bear the beastly brunt? Or will the gallant martyr bird in death, if not in life, be heard? Dare the egregious big shot mock the cry, "Save Bengal! Go, go!" And can a ghostly Tragopan help attain a Bengal ban?
For it undoubtedly was true that suddenly the whole state knew of Bengal Valley and the trek that ended in the fatal peck. And panegyrics to the pheasant in prose and verse were omnipresent. Suggestions for a cenotaph appeared in Bengal Telegraph, and sudden several human papers too discussed the matter through and through. The water problem in the state became a topic for debate. The big shot, struggling with the flood, was splashed with editorial mud. Then intellectuals began to analyze the Tragopan.
Was he a hothead or a martyr?
A compromiser or a Tartar.
A balanced and strategic planner?
An unthinking project banner.
No, he was a balanced and
unthinking
project. No, I don't agree.
It seemed no one could tell. And maybe that was just as well. For mystery matched with eccentricity provides the grist for great publicity. And myths of flexible dimension are apt to call forth less dissension. This is a tale without a moral. I hope the reader will not quarrel about this minor missing link. But if he likes them, he can think of 5 or 7 that will do as quasi-morals. Here are 2. The first is, you never know when your luck may break. So, you may as well work for your cause even without overt applause. You might in time achieve your ends. The second is that you will find friends in the most unexpected places, hidden among unfriendly faces, for small fry swim in every pond, even the doldrums of despond. And so I'll end the story here.
What is to come is still unclear.
Whether the fates will smile or frown,
and Bengal Vale survive or drown,
I
do not know
and
cannot say.
Perhaps,
Indeed, perhaps I never may.
I hope, of course, the beasts we've met will save our hidden valley.
Yet
the resolution of their plight is for the world,
not me, to write.
Thank you. And I know that we are running short of time, I've been told by the organizer, but we have to have at least a brief conversation with Ratna and Naseer. And I'm going to anticipate the audience question, which is really, I know personally why, I know the joys of poetry personally as a practitioner and reader, but what is it about poetry that draws you both as actors?
The fact that I could never write any. I didn't even try, because right from my school days, I was fascinated by poets like Browning and Keats and Shelley. I didn't even know of the existence of any Indian poets. There was one couplet by Ghalib, which we used to recite to each other in school, which it turned out was not written by Ghalib at all. It was only later that I discovered T.S. Eliot, and then I discovered Ghalib. And I used to, even though Urdu is my mother tongue, I used to look down upon Urdu literature and Urdu poetry, thinking that it's all romantic nonsense about sharab and gulab and kebab. And I realized when I encountered Ghalib's poetry, that it is about the most profound things I have ever read in my life. And I suppose it's envy that makes me so fascinated with poetry, and the fact that it can state things, ordinary happenings, in a beautiful way. That's the most wonderful definition of poetry that I've ever heard. That if you say, instead of saying the clouds are over the mountain, you say the mountain has a shawl, a white shawl around its neck. That is the kind of thing, the kind of turn of phrase which I could never do. And I think it's the rhythm of the poetry, of the poem, that appeals to me as an actor. And I've always loved reciting poems, where in fact I knew Browning's The Pied Piper of Hamelin since I was in class 9.
I remember you mentioning onomatomania, which is a malaise that I'd never heard of until Naseer mentioned it in an interview, which is just the joy of releasing language on the tongue.
Yes, onomatomania is an ailment which I suffer from. And when my brothers read this in an interview, they got very concerned and said, "Hey, what is this ailment?" The ailment consists merely of having the desire to repeat a word or a phrase or a sentence or an entire speech or an entire poem for no reason other than just for the joy of saying it. And I know I've been doing this since I was a child. Ever since when I saw a movie I liked, I'd go around repeating the lines some actor had said, or if it was a play, I'd repeat whatever any actor had said. So it's not an illness which disables me in any way, but does make my children and my wife wonder why I'm talking to myself all the time.
Ratna, how onomatomanic are you?
Not really. I think my mind is crowded with too many things. I don't have the luxury of cutting out everything and focusing just on a word, unless I'm shooting out of town. Then I can just forget about everything and focus on what I am doing. Usually, I have too many other things that are on my plate and too many hats I'm dealing with. So I don't have this particular ailment. I have many others, of course. But I do appreciate good words, and I love speaking them out aloud. Vikram Seth definitely is one of them. In my own mother tongue, which is Gujarati, there is a writer by the name of Sitanshu Yashashchandra, whose Gujarati is so beautiful. The words are so rich and so musical that you could just keep saying them again and again to yourself. Ismat Chughtai's writing is like that. An Urdu writer. So these are the people who have really moved me, impressed me, and whose words I like using for myself.
But my question then to both of you as theatre people is really, what is it? Are there specific challenges, do you think, when you present poetry as performance? Does poetry present a different set of challenges from a play?
Oh, yes. Because in a play, you have to think of several things which will help convey the content. But when you're dealing with words alone, then you just have to make the words come alive. And you have to make them your own. You have to do that in a play as well. But there are so many other things also that you have to keep in mind while doing a play. While reciting something, it's just indulging in the words. It's like, and I enjoy doing that as much as I enjoy swimming in the sea or playing tennis, just speaking the words. And it's also, frankly, as an experiment to see whether a story can be conveyed to an audience using the words alone. And I think we've been pretty successful in that endeavor.
Yeah. For example, when we first began doing Ismat Apa Ke Naam, a set of 3 short stories by Ismat Chugtai in Urdu, in Mumbai. So I said, who's going to come to see this? How many people even speak the language here? Who's going to come? This was 2001. It's 2025 now. We're still doing it. And there are still people coming to see it. And we do nothing. We just tell a story, one person at a time, standing on stage and just telling a story. Obviously, it works. And it has worked all around the world. We've taken it to all kinds of places. And it works.
Yeah, who doesn't like listening to a great story? Whether it's told to you in words, or whether it's told to you in pictures, or whether it's told to you in movement, or whether it's told to you from the stage. But all of us love listening to stories. And I think this begins in childhood.
But does that mean the narrative poem lends itself to theatre better than a lyric poem, for instance?
Well, I believe in a theatre which is shorn of all decorative elements. I detest the kind of plays which try to look like a film. And when you travel abroad, you see a lot of that stuff on Broadway and the West End and so on. I dislike it immensely, intensely, because it's not theatre. It is part magic show, part lighting display, part architectural exhibition, part magic show. To me, the essence of theatre is not creating an illusion on the stage, but getting across to the listeners. And it has been proved by the fact that this poem and some other stories that we have done as story readings have always managed to get across. Even the Ismat Chugtai stories get across to a non-Urdu speaking audience. We performed it in London and in the USA and in The Hague and in Holland. And there weren't anybody who could understand the words, but they just enjoyed the language of theatre, which is just maybe one or maybe 2 people on the stage who are sending across their energy and receiving the energy that the audience is sending across to you.
That, of course, demands a great participation from the audience and a great level of attention from the audience. It doesn't always work. Sometimes it does. But I found that in closer spaces, smaller groups, smaller audiences, it works very, very beautifully.
Agreed. I think it's the same most poets would
Yeah.
know.
And sound, slightly better sound.
Yes. There is a certain intimacy that one always wants for a poetry reading, and I'm sure likewise for theatre, and certainly for what you both do. I'd actually wondered, Naseer, I know I'm getting signs from the organizer that we need to wind up, but I want you really to, if you could, there is an interview in which you mention 2 actors in a no drama, a Japanese no drama, and you talk of both of them pointing to the moon. To me, that was just a moving and wonderful story, and it in so many ways distills what we are talking about right here. I just wondered if you could share that.
Yes. The no drama is an ancient form of Japanese theatre, which, like in the Kuttampalam in Kerala, the theatres were in the temples. And it was part of a religious ceremony. And every action in it, every movement in it, every vocal inflection in it is codified and done in exactly that way as it is preached. Now, this is a story of 2 actors. There is a gesture in the no theatre which is known as pointing at the moon. Now, the first actor who did this, who would perform this gesture as part of his act, was an extremely beautiful looking person who the audience loved, and his every movement was extremely graceful. And when he performed the gesture, the audience would gasp with astonishment. The second actor had none of these qualities. He was not graceful, he was not beautiful, he was not charismatic. But when he pointed at the moon, the audience saw the moon.
And
Thank you.
I'll add to that before we go off. I remember many, many years ago in Thrissur, we went to the Kerala Kalamandalam and saw a performance of Kudiyattam here. And we saw exactly what those actors were doing. We didn't understand a single word of what was being sung. We did not know all the mudras and all that. We didn't know enough about all that. But we understood, saw everything that the actor was trying to portray. That is the magic of acting, according to me. And our local traditions, of course, have supported it for many years.
A big thank you. Thank you to Naseeruddin Shah, Ratna Pathak Shah, and Arundhathi Subramaniam for such an unforgettably engaging, addictive, absorbing session. Thank you.